to SEDC 2023. This is the largest event that SEDC has ever done in our history, and you are at the very first pre-conference session. So we're all in it together. We made a little history together, but more importantly than the size of this event, we can't thank you so much for being here, and we're so proud of what we've done. More important than all of that, we're so proud to be here with you. We know that you're busy advocating for your communities, creating jobs, doing the real work of economic development. We know you're busy. Okay, so we can't thank you enough for coming in, and guess what? We know it's a Sunday as well. So we are so honored to have you here and so appreciative for all the great game-changing work that you do. Think about among the hallways here this week together are the people that last year collectively developed $200 billion in new capital investment. That's amazing. It's just amazing. It's hard to even comprehend that type of number. Now here's the effect of that, okay? 250,000 new jobs you all have created in the American South, most of which is rural. That's transformative things that you do. And you all are here together, captured in the same hallways. So Matthew and I and staff and SEDC and the board, our thing is just to get out of the way and let you be together and innovate, collaborate, and just accelerate economic development from here. So we're so excited. Please let us know if you need anything throughout the rest of the week. We knew, because we have so many extra people here this year, we noticed a lot of people were checking in Thursday, Friday, and especially last night where we had maybe 140 rooms or something here in this facility. So we thought, let's put some really cool, world-class, important, timely, and relevant content together on Sunday, and here we are. So as successful as you are, and you're in the weeds on so much technical and sophisticated economic development, look, a big part of it is how do we tell our story? How do we market ourselves and constantly be communicating in a way that works? So that's what we're about to talk about now with Linda Mosely of 365-Degree Total Marketing. Linda's a great friend of ours, such a great partner, such an important piece of economic development in the South. She does game-changing work with a lot of our members, including SEDC. So you've got one of the world's experts here to talk to us for just a little bit, and we're so thrilled. Thank you for your investment in SEDC, Linda, and all that you do for our partners. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for everybody that's here. I know there's so much competition on Sunday, from golf to lunch to whatever else, so I hope that what we show today really is worth your time. It means that much more on a Sunday, first opening. So I'm going to start out with the fact that, life is kind of humble to me. I don't know if anybody else has found that. I'm kind of old, and the older I get, the more wisdom I need. I grew up in the SMART group, and, graduated with high honors with my graduate degree, in the SMART group. Well, the older you get, the dumber you realize you are. Does anybody else feel that way? So the reason I share all that is because what you're going to see today is not Linda Mosely's information. Because, again, I realize the older I get, the less I know. And it's so important that we look at the people we're trying to target when we're actually going after site selectors, project managers, or whoever you're trying to turn. So today, I'm going to be presenting how to market to the project managers and the site selectors. And we send out a survey every year. And we've been doing that for the past 5 to 6 years now. And so when we send this survey out, sometimes we keep the exact same questions from year to year, and sometimes we change it because we feel like, okay, that one will hold for a little bit. Let's go on and try another subject for the next one, because we don't want to overwhelm them. We're very blessed. We sent out 100 surveys. We got somewhere between 30 and 33, so about 33%, which I feel like is a good percentage on this. And tell me where I punched this. Where do I point it? Okay, I'm doing the green for go. Do I use this green? Green for go. Okay, let me just make sure. Okay, whoops, that's cheating. Okay, so what we've done is, on the first one, is we're talking about 2 different phases all the way through this, because I think it's so important to know where you're at in the sales cycle when you're talking to your project managers and site selectors. So the very first phase is the research phase. I've learned through the years that you don't even know they're researching until you're in the top 5 most of the time. Have y'all found that to be true? So it's fascinating to me. So now the site selectors are in the research phase. Something really changed from last year to this year in the research phase. I'd like to think it's based on, Matt, it's based on your SEDC presentations, why this changed. But the website is obviously the #1 tool for the site selectors when they're in the research phase. And if your website doesn't punch up, it doesn't matter if you have the very absolute best match to the project they're going to. If your website doesn't pop up, it doesn't get you anywhere, and you're not going to be in the top 5. So raise your hand if you do any SEO work, search engine optimization. Woo, y'all are making me so happy. There's half the room. I tell you, 2 years ago, probably 1 or 2 hands would have gone up. And I think that you'll see in a little bit how much people are becoming aware of how important that is. Next thing, site maps. So they want to see maps of the entire site that you're presenting. And that's the most important thing in the research phase. So if your website does not have, site maps, or if you don't have printed out site maps, or if you don't have site maps you can send to them on a USB drive, then you're not where you need to be in terms of marketing to them in phase 1. The next one is digital marketing. Now, this moved up about 2 steps from the previous. I was kind of surprised that digital marketing was in #3. Raise your hand again if you do digital marketing campaigns. All right, once again, about half the room. Who would have thought that in the research phase that's #3? So they're saying you're getting their attention in the research phase. And I think that's extremely exciting, actually, because it's hard to push information sometimes to the site selectors and project managers. So knowing that they're looking at the digital marketing is very exciting. All right, the next is the drone photography and videography. How many of y'all would have guessed that? Every single person in this room, right? You know how important the drone photography and videography. Talk to me what the difference is. Why do they need videography sometimes and photography sometimes? Come on, y'all are smart. Pass it out. Why do they need photography sometimes versus videography? More information, and it captures it in a still format that they can actually do some comparisons with. Because sometimes they need to know proximity to the railroads, and yeah, you can see it as you're flying through, but they have to know in terms of, can we build a loading dock? Can we, what is it that we have to do to get our loads to the railroads? Can it come right back up? Can we add an extra road? What is it that's going to make this successful? So by having those major assets, you don't need drone photography for everything, but you do need it just to show them proximity and to show them an overview that they can study. They can take that ruler out. They can take, different information. How many of you actually mark your drone photography where you're showing how far everything is? Raise your hand. Okay, a couple of people. I would highly recommend that you try to do that, because that's where the drone photography comes into play. So if you can actually mark how far each one of the assets are, whether it's a highway, an exit ramp, the railroad, whatever it is that you need to show them, show that proximity in terms of actual numbers. And I would say, when you're thinking about site selectors and project managers, think of them as the scientist of this. They don't want the pretty. I mean, I'm into the pretty. But they want the facts and figures. They want to get down to the hard nuts and bolts. So the more hard nuts and bolts you can give them, the better. Next one on here is a brochure. Okay, you're going to watch the brochures go up and down. Okay, sometimes you think, brochures are dead, print's dead. They still want the brochures, and it's going to move up at certain points in this. And then postcards, that's the last one. But you'll see that postcards also moves up, okay? All right, so now you're in the top 5. What do you think is the #1? Any guesses? All right, let's look. Drone photography and videography. Now they're getting down to, I gotta really make sure this is gonna work. And if this one has one element that's gonna cost them $1 million because they have to build an exit ramp, or they have to build a road, or they have to do this, then I'm going to knock them out. We're going to go to the top 3. So the drone photography and videography become extremely important. Remember, that was #4 on the other one. All right, website. is number 2. Now, I was really kind of surprised at this because I kind of thought, okay, you've already done your research, you've already gotten it down. I was surprised that website was still in the top 3, to be honest, because I figured they had already used it and used it and used it. And now it's down to relationship and working with the person, but it's still number 2, okay? Next one is, this is where the brochure comes up. So now that you've got their interest, they're interested in seeing your brochure. So keep that in the back of your mind. You may or may not want to use it at phase 1 when you're trying to get their attention. But when you've got their attention, now you need to have a really nice brochure and you need to have it available for them. All right, and then the last one is the digital. So again, in the top 4, we're still in the top 4 with the digital. So I think that's very interesting. So you're in the top 5, you're still able to get that digital message out there and they're still looking at it and it's making a difference. I think that's fascinating. All right. Now, I went ahead and compared those 2. So you can see here, phase 1 is the website, brochure, and digital. Phase 2 is the drone, the website, and the brochure. And I think that's a little off. I don't think the brochure was in the top. But anyway, the drone photography, website, and brochure. Okay? Now we're going to go to websites. So now that you know websites are number 1 and 2 no matter what do we want on the website? Raise your hand if you think you know the number 1 thing they want. I want some wrong answers, so please just shout it out. Sites and buildings, okay. Anything else? Contact, ooh, who said that? This did not even rank the previous year, and this is where I feel like, when I was talking to Matthew earlier, the SEO and the contact information never showed up before. But I think it's always been important. They're just starting to get it. They're starting to realize how important that search engine optimization is. And I always hate to say something that people don't understand. So search engine optimization is when you go into your website and you work really hard to make sure that your website comes up first with certain terms and phrases and information. So you're actually labeling your maps, you're labeling your graphics, you're putting information behind the scenes, you're making sure those search phrases that you want to see are woven all the way through your website with the right words and phrases. And that's one of those terms that I think everybody gets now, but just in case someone doesn't, that's there. But the personal contact information, and y'all, that made me think twice, because if I were to look at all the websites that our company does, we do not have the contact information on page 1 of every one of them. Now, keep in mind, when you do that, your bounce rate's what? It's going to go up. Your bounce rate is how many people go to the first page and then they don't go into your website. And sometimes you want to bury your contact information just so you see them go all the way through. It's like somebody burying the potato chips past all the healthy stuff. You know, because you have to go buy the healthy stuff to get the potato chips. If they put the potato chips out here, you'd never buy healthy stuff. Does that make sense? So just keep in mind with the personal contact information, it does need to go on your home page, but it also means they may not click all the way through because now they have your data. I don't think high bounce rates are a bad thing as long as they're happy and as long as your website is generating what you need it to generate. Next thing, lo and behold, who would have guessed in today's time and place, workforce is number 3 on your website. I'm sure every one of you would have gotten that. Now we're getting to the sites and buildings. Sites and buildings are extremely important. Okay? Now, I want you to see here with the workforce and the sites and buildings, they were number 1 and 2 last year, and the year before. So you were looking at the workforce and the sites and buildings, and I don't think they were as aware of the search engine optimization, and they weren't as aware of the fact that they wanted the contact information on the home page before. I think it's always been important, but the sites and buildings were they were number 2 last year. Okay? Cost of doing business and the utility, that's number 5. Remember again, this is the research phase. So they're trying to find out if you can work for them. They're trying to find out if you've got the materials, because if you don't have the right sites and building, if you don't have the right cost, then you're not going to get in the top 5. You're probably not talking to them at this phase. So keep that in mind as you're developing your website. Make it where they want to go to your website. Make them where they want to read this information. Infographics, y'all have heard that. Use those. Maps. And then transportation and logistics. That's an important one, obviously, especially in some communities where that's your number one selling driver. All right, then you want your demographics on there. Then your quality of life. And I always laugh because I've literally, and I shouldn't give this away before the next slide, but I've literally had people say, don't put the quality of life on my website. They don't care about that. Just time into the chamber or the convention and visitor or tourism people. I don't want to put that on there. Well, guess what changes? Okay, so now we're going to go to the top 5 contenders again. What do you think's number 1 now? Any guesses? All right, and I'm putting all this on there. Workforce, still number 1. And this was number 1 in 2001 and 2022. This is where now they're interested in you, and they got to know now that you can provide the people that's going to keep this business running. So this is critical. You might have the perfect building, but you don't have either the training or the workforce that's going to make it easy for them to use. So keep in mind, the way you describe your workforce is extremely important. Use that hour commute level. Use that, the mile radiuses that are going out. Don't just concentrate on your county because of politics, okay? Screw politics. I mean, your job is to sell this community. Your job is to let people know what you have in that community. And if you set up the businesses, you're going to eventually have the people living in your community, and then you're going to have the housing that I know a lot of you have shortages on housing options and all that. You will eventually have it if you get the right businesses there. Number 2, incentives. Now we're getting busy. Did you see incentives even rank in the last one? Wasn't even up there. Now they're saying, okay, you've got these 5 people have the right buildings. These 5 people have all the things that we need. Now we need to make sure which one's going to give us the best deal, which one is going to even this out, which one's going to weigh down, and which one's going to weigh up. Next one is the cost of doing business. Again, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. We're getting down to, I need someone who can make sure that this business is going to make a profit. I need a community that's going to give us incentives, have the right cost of business, have the right utilities. Now, they've checked up the infrastructure. Don't worry about that. Now we're getting into the cost of all that. Now we're getting back into that quality of life. Remember, quality of life was down at the bottom? Now, if you look there in 2021 and 22, that was way up at the top. That was number 2. Quality of life was even before incentives. So I think it's, it kind of weighs out. I don't usually show, the previous year if it's within 10%, but once it starts getting 15 to 20%, difference, then I think we need to look at it. It's possibly been a trend and something we need to keep our eye on. But quality of life now becomes, again, you found your place that has all the ingredients that you need. Now you're figuring out which one's going to be cheaper to operate, and now you're going to go to quality of life. Okay, report building. Now this has been up higher, but it is extremely important at some certain points in the process. I remember, Missy, you probably remember this, the Kia plant in Georgia. I remember them telling us Georgia wasn't even the top group at the very beginning. And they were working till like 2, all of a sudden Georgia got on their radar, and they worked till like 2 o'clock in the morning the day before they presented the top 5. And if the report building had not been easy on the website, and when I say easy, that means you don't want to have to just capture everything on the page. If you just want to put a map in there, make sure they can just copy a map and put that over. If they just want to copy these demographics, they can copy that. Don't make it where they have to go to the whole page to get that report building in there. All right, now we're going back to sites and buildings. Then why do you think it's so low? We're in the top 5. They've already figured it out, right? They already know you have that. They don't need it anymore. They already know you have that site, okay? Now we're doing the transportation and logistics again. You wouldn't have been in the top 5 if they didn't know you had the transportation and logistics, okay? And then the last one on here is the map. They've been looking at your map now for ages. So they don't need those last 3, not because they don't need it, because they already have it. Does that make sense? Okay. And then here's phase 1. You start with the SEO and personal contact workforce and sites and buildings. And then phase 2 is the workforce, comes first because they've already figured out you work. The incentives, the cost of business, and the quality of life. So there's the order for the 2 phases. All right? And I think, let me go back for 1 second. With this, we're talking about websites, but I think it's also important for you to realize when you're thinking about how do I follow up? Because now you know you're in the top 5, and how many times have you said, okay, how do I win this? How do I get it up from the top 5 to the top whatever? Well, just know you don't need to resend them the sites and buildings. You don't need to resend them the drone photography. You don't need to resend them those things. Look at phase 2. Convince them that you've got the training programs in place for the workforce. Convince them that you have the right workforce at that point in time. You know, you already know about the incentives. Y'all do that all the time. So you know you've got to weave those in and out. And then the cost of business and the quality of life. So just remember that in terms of just general follow-up when you're working with them. All right, so what do you think they use as their primary device? And let me just list those out. Mobile phone, your laptop, your desktop, or your tablet? Phone? Okay, how many think it's the phone? Raise your hand. Okay. I would have thought so too. We do a lot of marketing, and in tourism, 70 to 80% phone. Watch this. Laptop. Look over, I reversed the order on this, but I did it on purpose. Look at 2023. Laptops are so convenient. I mean, I carry that almost as much as I carry my phone. Here's my laptop. You know, I don't go anywhere hardly without my laptop. So it's interesting to me that the site selectors and project managers are increasing on their laptops. But the good news is the manufacturer making them nice and easy and, you know, just almost as easy to carry around with you as a phone. So I think it's fascinating that in 21, 60%, 22, 70, and in 23, 78%. So that's a difference. Then your phone, okay? And if you look at 23, you're only looking at 22% on your phone. Now, if you're doing tourism, it's probably the opposite. So you need, you know, but y'all aren't doing tourism, you're doing economic development. But I think it's important to realize that, so when you're building your website, just keep that in the back of your mind, because it's not changing. If you look at it, it's not changing. And I think that's why we do a survey every year, because these kind of things are important to keep your hands on. Tablet, you know, not many at all are using the tablet. And then the desktop, almost zero. Now, keep in mind the question said, what is your primary? Doesn't mean they don't ever use their desktop, but I don't know, in my office, almost everybody has a laptop that we connect to the desktop stations. So are y'all kind of the same way? So it's still laptop, even though you have the big screens and you have, you know, 3 or 4 screens across your desks. So this is a comment from one of the site selectors that I thought was real important. They said, definitely use the laptop and desktop most frequently, but when on the fly, it's tough to not be able to access via phone. So it's still critical that you make the phone easy to access and make sure your statistics don't slide off the screen, and that it's easy for them to read on a, like, how many of us have, thank God we have Wi-Fi on planes now. So, you know, you can do a lot of work sitting there on your phones, and you may not want to pull out your laptop if you're on a short flight. So those are the kind of things that are important to look at. All right. Now, this one was kind of interesting to me. This one seems to make perfect sense. Do outdated websites make a difference? What would you think? Yes, you know, they make a difference. But 70% said yes, 20% said, I'm not sure, no. Well, that just grates my gizzard. I can't stand that outdated website. You know, anybody we work with, we just make sure we put like the March, April updates in your maintenance contract, because I don't want my name at the bottom of an outdated website. So, but sometimes you get so busy, you can't do it all, right? So those statistics you just didn't get to. You didn't get a chance to get that updated part on there. And then 10% said, it kind of depends. Who knows? Okay? Good news for those of you who don't have time to update your sites. It doesn't make as much difference as you would thought, but still 70% obviously said yes. So, and the comment on that one was it depends on how out of date the data is. All right, what are website turnoffs? Any ideas, guesses?
Readability. You can't read it.
Very good one. And I don't think we put that as one of our answers, but that's a good one we need to. Readability.
I'm going to charge you a little bit for buffering.
What's that? The buffering. Yes, slow load time. Yes.
Pop-ups.
Pop-ups. Ugh. Those are awful, aren't they? I had that fly through on my Google today for the first time. Too much content. Yes, you got to scroll and scroll and scroll. Anything else? Good comments. Okay, let's see what they said. No contact information on the home page. Going back to that. And again, I have confessions. We don't always do that. We've got to go back and make sure all of our websites have that on the first page, not even though it has contact us up there. All right, too many clicks to get information. We all know that one. How many clicks? Raise your fingers for how many clicks they need to have. Have we got you all trained? Yes. 3. Don't go to that 4th one. Don't go to that 4th one. So keep it 3 clicks in. This is interesting. No staff data. So I don't know how many in the room are the main president CEOs, but they want your staff too. Because sometimes they need to just get a quick answer and they may not want to go to the head honcho to get that quick answer. They want all the staff data on there. I thought that was very interesting. Okay, and we get back to the too little information. I thought that was interesting. I've not ever seen that before. And we did not give them choices. We didn't give them a multiple choice on this one. We just let them put it in. Next one is too much information on a page, and I think we all realize that one. So how many screens would you say is a maximum, like when you're scrolling down? Anybody want to guess? 2? Anybody? Does that sound about right? I would say, yeah, 2 to 3. You don't want to go down to 4 or 5. Do not. And you might want to go back and look at your website, and if it just keeps on scrolling. Some people, we charge by the page. Some people will be like, oh, okay, we'll just do a 2-page website. That didn't work. So anyway, just keep that in the back of your mind when you look at that. All right, other ones. When the chambers and the EDAs mix their messages. That's interesting. Y'all, we have to brand your community together. And I know politics are politics. There are some communities that have lawsuits going on between the cities and the counties. There are, little cities that don't want to talk to the big cities because the big cities are always ruling things. I mean, you probably can't name a fight that all of us in this room hadn't heard about. We get it. But you gotta make sure you're saying the same thing. Especially with Google out there, because when Google searches to see if you've got great technical schools or great education system, if this one over here is saying one thing and y'all are saying another, you're losing credibility very fast. So just work together enough to make sure that branding goes together. And then they want the titles, contact information for all staff. And then they want you to answer when they call. That has nothing to do with the website, but I thought it was cute. It was one of the ones that came in, so answer when they call. All right, now we're going to talk about new sites and buildings. We all know that's an important part of it. So when they actually come to community, this was kind of a little bit of a surprise, not a ton of surprise, but what do you think the first thing they want you to put in their hands are when they get there? They've come to your site. You finally got them there. We're so excited. What? Site map. Very good. What else? There's several things they want you to put in their hand. Agenda. That's a good one. One more thing? Okay. They want that drone photography. Why do you think they want it there now? I mean, they can see it flat on, but they can't see this, can they? So I would think hard about maybe having some kind of setup, where maybe before you go over there or while you're there, maybe you just have like a little table set up where you can actually show them the drone photography while you're there at the site, so they can put it all in perspective, because that's something that's, every once in a while we get lucky and we got a plane or a helicopter that takes us up, you know, so we can really impress them. But plan on showing them that drone photography at the site, okay? Think about that. And then they want the video of the site, which is a lot of times is the same thing, but it can show them perspective all the way through the building. And then they want to see some 3D and 4D buildings, okay? We all know the power companies can help you with that. Some of the some of the sites and building programmers like GIS WebTech, GIS, they can help you with those 3D buildings as well. So get those 3D buildings just so they can see possibilities, okay? And then they want a USB drive with the project data. How many of you hand them notebooks? I know, after saying USB, now you're not going to want to raise your hand, are you? But they do still want the notebooks with the project materials. But they want that USB drive first, because that's what they're going to take home. And sometimes it's easier to pull up that USB, and sometimes it's easier to have it printed out, okay? So give them the choice. And again, y'all know as well as I do, sometimes when you're sitting in the airport and you don't want to pull your laptop up, that notebook's easier to look at, right? You're waiting up. Now the plane got delayed for another 20 minutes. Well, you wish you had plugged in your laptop by now, then it gets delayed by another. But if you give them the notebook, they've got options. They can look at it, okay? And then mobile apps if you have them. And then final, the promotional items. Now, keep in mind this promotional item, because I'm about to tell you where the promotional items are more important than perhaps the project business, okay? And I think it's always good to know when to use what, okay? All right, the preferred attire for the meeting. I always like, you know, just thinking through everything. What do you think you should wear to the meetings with these people? Anybody want to guess? Okay. First thing is a polo shirt and a sports coat, okay? You got that down here in the front row. Next thing is a suit. Last is the golf shirt. And I know sometimes it's hard when you're going into a muddy area and maybe you don't have everything where you want it. Just pull on those snake boots on top of your suit or on top of your, you know, whatever, because this is what they want, and it doesn't matter what we want. You know, I was told a long time ago, dress for your audience, don't dress for yourself. And that was one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. So just keep in mind where they're coming from. All right, what's the most effective way to notify them of new sites and buildings? You're like, oh, finally got this building. Or you just had somebody evacuate a building and you need to let people know. Anybody want to guess the best way to let them know? It's really easy. Call sounds like the best way. They want an e-blast, because they want to be able to click through, and they want, attached to that e-blast, they want to see the drone photography. You know, they want to be able to see it all the way through. They want to be able to see that vision, because our temptation is to call. And calling's great. You got a good relationship, call them away. But if you don't know them, you're getting new, you know, you're kind of new, you've left them 3 messages, they haven't called you back, you know, what do you do? But an e-blast gets everybody. So if you build up your e-blast list, you're really able to make progress. That website link, the good news is you can do both at the same time. You know, you can include that website link and the drone photography link, or you can, I always like dividing out so I can have more touches versus less. So you might want to send the first one with the drone photography, then send a second with the website link a week later. So you've got options. Then the third one is trying to sit down and meet with them, okay? And phone calling was on this. You obviously have to call them before you get a meeting or email them, but this is the order they put. And then some of them say, don't bother me, go through your state project managers. I think this is kind of interesting. So, you know, obviously develop those good rapport with your project managers at the state level, and then work with them to get the information out also. All right, the next one is that office meeting. So the conference meetup, It's like this, what we're at today. And I know the last one was specific to the site selectors and project managers, which was really nice because you could go up and introduce yourself. You got to see them talk on the panels. And they do like that. They like that, you know, people coming to the conferences and meet them, and then they have the office meetings. And then we have postcards. Remember how I said at some point in time the postcards are going to move up? I talked to one of the guys that actually rated this number 2 on his book, and I just had to call him because I'm like, talk to me about why the postcards, you know, are ranking in the educational process of letting people know. And he said, well, you know, he said, because we're usually like a 1 to 5 person office, when we get the mail, it's something that just we see. You know, it's not inside an envelope that gets chunked. So I think that's important to realize is they, you know, it's a touch. I don't think they're going to keep it on their desk for 2 or 3 weeks, but it's a way for them to open their eyes and see that it's a possibility. Now, keep in mind also it's number 6, but it did move up. Okay, and then that virtual meeting, that was ranking higher, of course, in 2021 than it is now. They'd rather have the office meet, and they'd rather have the conference meets at this point in time. All right, and then the brochure with maps, they haven't gone away, but they're low on the thing. After a site visit, we thought we'd ask, and we put on the survey, don't worry, we know both are important, because we know quality and speed are important. But a lot of them said speed was more important than quality, and I know everybody in this room has more to do than they can do in a 24-hour period, am I right? So sometimes you've got to know, what do I need to do? It's going to take me a week to get everything that they wanted together. Do they need it sooner than that? Well, you may want to think about maybe disseminating it in little groups. So you're at least giving them something pretty fast, because if 60% of them want it fast and your competition got it to them fast, just keep that in mind, because I want both. I want to do speed and quality, but you can't always get everything together that they want. So if you have to make a choice, just maybe do it in groups. Okay, favorite virtual tour method. Drone video was number 1. We've already talked about that many times. Moving up fast is the virtual glasses. I think we've gotten to the point now people are comfortable with them. And so these were actually, believe it or not, these were pretty close in terms of like 10 to 20% difference between the 3 of these. And then the third one is a FaceTime appointment, so you can actually just kind of take them through the building. Have any of y'all done that? Believe it or not, several of the site selectors that I've talked to said that was very effective for them, you know, when they just had just a FaceTime appointment with people. It's obviously not as effective as the other 2, but just keep it in the back of your mind. All right, so now they've come, they've met with you, you've sent them all the information quickly and with quality. Now, what's the best way to follow up after that? Any ideas? What do you do? How do you stand out? All right, a personal email. Now, what do you think it was last year? They were still wanting snail mail first. They were wanting the snail mail, personal mail out first. But now I think people are realizing that emails can be quality, they can be, you know, detailed, and you get to keep it, right? You get to file it. Next is the personal mail. And again, if you look at 21, 22, that was 50 to 60% for the personal mail, which is the same thing as snail mail. And so that was number 2, 44% said this, and we did not limit how many they said in this. So you'll notice it adds up to more than 100. The detailed summary is 44%. A memorable gift is 33%. Last year, that ranked pretty high, the memorable gift. But there is a place where you're going to see the promotional gifts coming up a little further. And then the 4D tour of the site and building is another thing you can send them later. Maybe you've done the virtual, you've done the virtual photography and the videography. Now you can send out some 4D stuff. All right, now we're going to get to digital marketing. And what do you think they use the most? I know all y'all know the answer to this. What social media do you think they know the most? LinkedIn. Anybody? I'm sure everybody got that. What percent do you think use LinkedIn? Oh, man. Darn, my little finger hit it. All right, so 90% on LinkedIn. You're going to get almost everybody on LinkedIn. Now, what are some tricks, and I'm just speaking off of the survey now, what are some tricks you can do to pull them into your LinkedIn? How do you get them to pay attention to you? Blogs, 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 blogs. Find a subject that is relevant to your community. Could be ports, 3 ports within 3 hours. It could be, logistics and transportation. You could talk about how the logistics and transportation take you east, west, north, and south. You can go and make it general and say something like, what highways connect you north, south, east, and west in Virginia? And then you lean them toward what you've got to offer, and then you link them back to your LinkedIn and or your website. But I've got blogs that I've written, 7 to 10 years ago, and we still get 5 to 10 to 20 visits to our website a month from those blogs that I wrote ages ago. So keep that in mind. I mean, they're huge, and y'all are all so intelligent. Use that intelligence, and I know it's hard to stop your life. Partner with a marketing agency or stop your life, because this is going to be important, and they're going to use it. One of the younger project managers that I spoke with at one of the previous conferences said that's where he goes for all his data, just LinkedIn research and that kind of thing, because he kind of trusts it because it's tied to a person. So anytime it's tied to a person, probably they're giving you good information. Does this surprise you? Instagram being number 2, it kind of surprised me, I got to be honest with you, and it's way higher than Facebook, way higher. So just interesting to know. Use that Instagram, and there's Facebook. Only 40% use Facebook. Kind of makes sense if you think about Facebook guys as a social medium. I have to fight with people all the time and say, they don't want to read about your industrial park on Facebook. They want to read about a satisfied client or, a fun little quote that you have or where you spoke or something fun. Have you ever gotten kind of irritated because somebody is like bragging about something business-wise on your Facebook and you're like, oh my God, it's 8 o'clock at night. I don't want to read about that. I'm trying to relax. Anybody other than me? I mean, it's the whole definition of Facebook is social. So when you're posting things on social, think social, period. Same thing with Instagram, but you got a little bit more flexibility because you can capture it a little differently. All right, Twitter, it's going down. It's going down all over the nation. Huh?
X. It's called X now.
There you go, X. You're so right. I was afraid people wouldn't know it. So X is Xing out. All right, now this is the last part, and let's see how we're doing on time. We're doing good. Okay, so the miscellaneous marketing, I almost want to leave off part of this because I don't want to give it away to people that weren't here. But this is just miscellaneous things you can do. All right, what items do they keep after a conference? You're here. You come up with somebody you've been trying to meet with for months. You finally get to meet with them. What do you want to give them so they keep it? Believe it or not, business cards. I mean, this is why we do surveys, y'all, because sometimes I'm just shocked at the results. 55% do keep business cards. I'm sorry, don't give me a business card, but give me your QR code and I got you. So I'm teasing. But then this is where the promotional gifts come in. You know how they were kind of down here on the site visits and some of the other things? This is where they will take that home. They'll pack it in their suitcase and they'll take it home. So I think that's real interesting to know. So 44% are going to keep that after a conference. Then the QR codes, I'm kind of surprised that this isn't number 1, but it's not. So they're going to keep the business cards, and then the QR codes, basically you're just scanning in those business cards. And then that tied with business cards with demographics and photos. We found a long time ago when we didn't re-ask this in 2023, but we have asked what type of business cards do you keep the most? And every time they want a photo or demographics on it. So this one was worded a little differently. So next year I'm going to go back to what type of business card do you want to retain. How many times have you gone home and you're like, "Oh, who was that person? I really liked them, but you can't remember who they were." It so helps to have that photo on there. And then same thing for the site selectors and project managers. If you can give them the demographics or something about one of your industrial parks or something, then you're giving them something to retain other than just your name. So just keep that in the back of your mind as you're going through all this. All right, industrial site brochures. They aren't going to keep that. Leave it home. Only 11% might be worth it, but just know that they're not going to keep those at the level that you hope they would at these conferences. And then the community brochure, none of them are going to keep that. When does quality of life become important? Phase 2, when you're in the top 5. Now, we all know we live in beautiful, wonderful places, and it is important, but it's not what's going to capture them to your area in phase 1. All right, business card priorities. This is 2023. The photograph of the person is number 1. The quick phone load is number 2. The quality paper is number 3. Stats or demographics is number 4. And then a photo of the community, not important to them, okay? So that gives you what you can think of when you're developing your business cards. All right, now this is one I don't want to give away. I just want to show my clients, but I'm going to go ahead and show it to y'all because I knew y'all would be competing with things on a Sunday. All right, so what are their preferred promotional gifts? Something that's unique to your community. So what's something unique to your community? Blues guitar. So he's going to want to fill it with all kinds of fun blues guitar information in there. And probably some barbecue kind of stuff, because that just kind of goes with the blues guitar, right? Barbecue sauce, something like that. But that makes them remember that quality of life without having to tell them about the quality of life. Next one, wine. There you go. Start keeping track of what kind of wine they like, so you're not giving them red if they like white or whatever the case may be, sweet if they like dry. All right, next one's a food basket. Now, those can kind of all go together. You can do all 3 of those in one basket if you want to. I know there's some overachievers in here. Next one's leather journal. Now, don't everybody start giving them leather journals or they're going to have leather journals. No, I'm teasing. But it's good to know. They've got leather journals there. It's number 4. And, you know, we can all use leather journals. I don't like legal pads because I will just put it down and not know where it went. So I have a leather journal that I put everything in, and I just put an X on that page when I'm through with that page. So those are things that people can use over and over and over. Thought this was interesting, a backpack. Okay. Leather satchel. And I think that's it on that. All right, this is the last slide. So we'll open it up for any questions if you have any. What publications do they read? How many of you have a small budget and you have to prioritize where you advertise? Okay, this is why we ask that, because most people don't have, how many people are from Texas? Raise your hand. And not everybody has the Texas money, so we have to prioritize sometimes, don't we? So this kind of helps us prioritize. All right, the state business magazines are extremely important. That's their number 1 read, and 80% of them read the state business magazines. So just keep that in mind as you're going through. The state business newspaper, 60%. So again, you're looking at the statewide information as 1 and 2. Number 3 is the Area Development Magazine. So those of you who are trying to choose between national and regional, I'd go regional first if you're having to prioritize. And then the Site Selector magazine kind of ties with the Area Development Magazine. And then the last one is the Wall Street Journal. So I think that's always critical to know when we're trying to prioritize. All right, and that's it. I hope that these survey results helps you in terms of your marketing. It's always fun for us to get these statistics together and just kind of see how to apply them. So any questions for anybody? Yes?
You mentioned a while ago about a tire at a site visit. It was all about men.
Yes, it was.
What about women?
I think you can pretty well take your tag right off of that. So I think pretty much just wear something tailored with a suit coat. And if you remember correct, the suit was actually number 2, not number 1. So maybe go like, you know, I'm wearing a dress with a thing versus a real tailored suit. You know, again, know your site selector, but I would go with something just a little looser with a jacket. And then the second time around, you know, depending on who you're going with. And again, once you meet with them, if they're wearing a suit, go for a suit. If they're wearing, yeah, go ahead.
So sometimes you can ask or they will tell.
Absolutely.
Prefer to dress and what their plan for the attire is gonna be, but I've found that it's appropriate to even ask what is y'all's preferred attire.
There you go. And you may even want to tell them, like if you're going to a site that you feel like it would not be appropriate to dress, to overdress, maybe it's the heat of the day, and you're like, you know, we could wear a suit coat, but it's gonna be 100 degrees or it's gonna be 90 degrees. That's when you need to kind of take control and just let them know, just say, listen, we're looking forward to having you. I would recommend that you just wear, you know, a golf shirt or something semi-casual because of the heat, and don't wear a suit coat. Now, obviously, they can choose to do what they want to, but it's a good point. What else? Yes?
You were saying putting demographics or something on the back of your business card?
Yes.
What does that look like? I know right now, I've always worked in rural communities.
Mm-hmm.
So I always put a map of the state and with my county highlighted on the map. Because that's always the first step is telling them.
And they love maps, so that's not a bad thing.
But what kinds of things would you put on there?
Well, what was number 1 that they wanted over and over? Workforce. So I would definitely put workforce and just put that high and tight. So you're basically saying the population, then the population that is available for the workforce, and then you know, you can pull from other demographics. I don't know that the race and all that's important. It's more about matching those demographics with what they're looking for. So what else? Okay.